So this is John's lab?
Yeah, I've been here at Cedarville for 30 years now. And done a lot of work in this lab and a couple other labs that are next door to this one. Over here we have what's called the petrographic microscope. This is a microscope that's designed for looking at thin sections. And this is what a thin section.
The slides that Ray produces for you?
Yep, this is what Ray makes. These are from his lab in Calgary. And he takes a rock like this and will slice a really thin layer off of it and glue it on a glass slide and then polish it down so you can see through it. And you know, if you hold it up to the light, you can see the light passes right through that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that allows us to study the sand grains under the microscope. So
It's quite an art to make the thin sections.
yeah. Here's, I've got a slide on the microscope right now, and this is one of the thin sections from the 𝘍𝘰𝘶𝘯𝘵 sandstones. And it has what we call ooids in here, and these are dolomite ooids.
Ovoid shapes.
They look like balls almost. And what happens is you get a little sand grain rolling around in the surf or rolling around on an ocean bottom. As it rolls around, just like a kid rolling a snowball, you know how a snowball gets bigger? These little sand grains accumulate the dolomite around them.
So you can see the sand grain in the middle,
Yeah.
that white spot, and all the coating around it.
You know, this was amazing evidence for us. I still remember opening up my email, looking at this, and I was just amazed because this is just incredible evidence that the 𝘍𝘰𝘶𝘯𝘵 was made underwater. You can't make these kinds of things in a desert. I presented this at a national geology meeting, and I had a scientist come up that knew I was a young Earth creationist and was skeptical about all the work I had done. And every geologist would look at that and know that those were ooids, except if they're in the
𝘍𝘰𝘶𝘯𝘵 in front of the name.
Isn't that interesting?
As soon as it was
So it's
𝘍𝘰𝘶𝘯𝘶.
just, I don't want to see this.
He just would not look at it, would not admit, would not even study them to see if they were ooids or not. And he just said, nope, those can't be ooids, those aren't ooids. And, you know, wanted to drop the subject almost immediately. I pressed him on it a little bit, but he didn't want to go any further on that.
So what happens when someone is captive in a paradigm, they don't want to see any evidence that's contrary to that paradigm, and that's what was happening to him.
Yeah, that's one of the neat things that we do as creation scientists. We kind of have a different way of looking at things, and so we tend to collect data and look for data that probably other people miss, or probably they might have seen it, but they really don't think very deeply about it and think about the implications. And that's one of the things I think I enjoy most about a creation scientist, because there are so many discoveries out there that are just waiting for us.
We're not constrained. We're able to ask questions that they're not asking.
And so that's what's kind of driven you to this research now, right? I mean, because the conventional paradigm would have never gone in to take samples to look at that fold.
They've just talked about these folds and just assumed that they were formed long after the rocks were formed, and therefore there had to be mechanisms that allowed the rock to bend when it was very hard. As creation scientists, we think these layers were laid down during the flood. The folding occurred only a year later, at the end of the flood, when the mountains and plateaus were rising in the west. If that's the case, we wouldn't expect there to be evidence of the rocks changing under heat and pressure. That's what we're investigating and why we're making thin sections to look inside the rocks. From looking at it, anyone looking at these folds, you can see immediately they're so smooth that it seemed intuitively that these had to have been formed when they were soft. But we had to go in and get the samples so we could confirm that, plus rule out any objections that might be raised. So it's all part of doing good science.